like I said, we're having lunch and having a conversation, and that's it's conversations all throughout the Midwest. Today we're talking about the collapse of International Nutrition's building and the tragic death of 2 people and the injured others, and people talking about that. Now, I of course look at it through the perspective of the media, and so when I was having conversations earlier today with my media buddies, we were all talking about how the coverage was, how what the TV stations did, what the other radio stations did, the newspaper, and all of that stuff. I would imagine if you were a doctor, you would be talking about the trauma and how the hospitals handled it. Or if you were a police or firefighter, you'd be talking about it in a different perspective, or a worker in a factory be talking about it from a different perspective, because everybody looks at things their own way. So the conversation I was having with my buddy here, Jeff Putnam, sort of fascinated me because I didn't realize or didn't think about the legal ramifications about what is going on right now for the people that were involved in the accident, and also as far as the company's concerned. And my buddy Jeff Putnam joins me right now. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the program.
Hi, Tom. Good afternoon.
Okay, now you are you're an attorney, and you do focus a lot on workplace incidents, right?
I do.
On workman's comp and things like that. Okay,
Correct.
so what I thought was interesting is that, and I didn't know this, is that if whatever happened to the building, and we don't know what it did yet, whatever had happened to the building, we don't know what it was, if it was the company's fault, all that these people will be entitled to would be workman's compensation.
Well, that's correct. And first of all, Tom, I want to express my condolences to the families. They've lost loved ones, or to those injured. I mean, this is a horrible tragedy, and the prayers go out to them. And, as you and I were talking about today, there's 2 possible claims in a situation like this. One is a workers' compensation claim. That is status-based. Were you working at the time you were injured? There's another claim that could be brought, and it's a little bit more difficult to discern, which would be a possible third-party claim, where there might be a claim against someone other than the employer of International Nutrition, someone that might be at fault or responsible for this tragedy, for the collapse. However, that would take a little bit more work to handle and to really work up and find out what exactly happened.
So in other words, and we don't know what did happen, but in other words, if they could find or prove that the reason that this building collapsed was that there was a faulty valve or something of some sort, or that a contract worker came in and did a faulty repair or something along those lines, then it could be you go for the third party. And when you go for a third party, then you can go and you can sue for like pain and suffering and punitive damages. But if it happened and it was the company's fault, then all you get is workman's comp, which is what, 66% of your average salary, and your medical bills taken care of, right?
And work comp, you don't look at fault. You don't look at who did something wrong. The question is, were you injured in the course and scope of employment? If you are, you automatically get benefits. And even if the employer's at fault or the employee's at fault, under certain circumstances, the employee could be denied benefits if they're too much at fault, but that rarely happens. Usually it's status-based, and then they're entitled to benefits, but they're capped, and they're not paid in full. So even if you have a valid workers' compensation claim, you're not going to be paid in full. For instance, if you're off of work, if to those who are injured and missing time, they're entitled to 66% of their average weekly wage, which isn't a formula that we have, the courts have set up as to how you determine these.
Is that etched in stone, or does it vary? I mean, in other words, could somebody get 58% and somebody else get 69%, or is it 66 and that's it?
Well, the 66% is based upon the weekly wage. There can be disputes on what an average weekly wage is. And we've actually gone in front of judges and argued, should it be $560 or $620? Mm-hmm. And it makes a difference to somebody over a long period of time, even those small amounts. But those are some of the issues we can litigate. But the workers' comp, they are capped, so you don't get that. You're not paid in full. Where the third party claim is not capped for damages, and those are based on your full damages.
Okay,
but you have to prove fault for that.
Now, when you say third party, I'm assuming that if a coworker was at fault, that does not qualify as a third party. That's the same as a company doing it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
This would, if someone else outside of International Nutrition was responsible for this, and I have no idea what the cause of the collapse would be, but that's what, at least OSHA's in there right now. But if you have if the people who are injured or have lost lives in this tragedy, this is probably the time where you need to talk to an attorney and find out what type of information aside from OSHA can be gathered right now. And that usually involves expert witnesses coming in and doing a lot of work and finding out, doing some digging and finding out who's the responsible parties, if there are.
And there very well may not be. I don't know if you'll know the answer to this question, but we had a call earlier from a gentleman that works for the unions, and he was talking about how OSHA is spread very thin right now with sequestration and the state of Nebraska. OSHA spread very thin, and therefore they don't get inspected. These plants don't get inspected as regularly as you might think they do. Would you have any idea if OSHA came through and randomly inspected 100 factories, 100 workplaces, what percent, how many of those would have serious claims against them?
I don't know what the percentage would be. I can tell you this, in my practice, I see it quite a bit. OSHA can't be everywhere all the time. And OSHA does have policies where you can make a complaint, and that can be confidential. And I'm not sure how well they get to those. Obviously, OSHA has a system where they measure the complaints by severity. Could this complaint cause death? Type of a thing. They will investigate those further. Now, for instance, this incident, OSHA would probably have been on site within 8 hours. That's their rule. Where someone has died, they will have someone there immediately inspecting, and so they will work up a report and possibly fine international paper or not. You don't know, but the issue beyond that is, if you're looking into a claim, a third party claim. You want to rely on OSHA a little bit, but you probably need to get your own people in to take a look at the evidence and see who's responsible if someone is.
No, let's talk about this a little bit, because now we're not doing this interview to try to drum up any business or anything like that. Okay,
no.
So I want to make sure that's. But I found this interesting. I mean, I understand. I mean, yeah, obviously, if you are involved, if you are hurt, if you are injured, that's going to be one of your main concerns. We got bills to pay. What happens? Who's going to take care of all of this? That's got to be a concern. At the same time, there's got to be some distance. You don't want to be that ambulance chaser just knocking on their doors and saying, "Hey, sorry about your loss, but here's my card." Do lawyers tend to? I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about like lawyers in general. Do they tend to go after people like this, like the image might be, or do most lawyers just sort of wait and let people come to them?
No, for instance, I have a website that just has information to figure out. People need to educate themselves into what the law is, and sometimes people have been underpaid for years on claims, and they never knew that. And the only thing I always tell people is, there's a lot of really good lawyers in Omaha. So go talk to anybody and just figure out what your rights are. And there's no obligation. I can tell you, I don't know any lawyers that will have any obligation to sit down and tell you, here's what you should get paid. Here's the medical bills that they should pay. Now, and we can tell you, here's where some of the problems may arise in the future. They may deny medical treatment, or they may not be paying you correctly. Or if you can't return to work, there are benefits that are available out there. Vocational rehabilitation benefits help you get into another line of work. They all cost money, and so. If you're relying upon somebody else to tell you what those are, you usually want to get yourself as educated as possible.
Okay, is there a problem? In other words, is there a time frame when they have to get any of this thing done? If they don't start, filing or moving forward with this within 90 days, do they lose any benefits, or do they have to wait?
There's a 30-day window to make. That the insurance company or responsible party on the workers' compensation claim should make payments, whether it be death benefits to the next of kin of the widow or children of the employee who died. They should start making those payments right away, unless there's some type of dispute as to whether that person was employed at the time. Sometimes we get into arguments about that as well. Were they employed or were they an independent contractor? You can have a lot of different issues, but if there's no basis for a denial, payment should start within 30 days, and there are penalties that sometimes can be imposed.
Now, you say that if you are an employee, if it's the employer's fault, then your ability to sue and the benefits you would get are limited, versus if it's a third party. What if it's a situation where I'm doing business? Maybe I'm a salesperson, maybe I'm a vendor of some sort, or I'm delivering or whatever, and something like this happens. I don't work for that company, but I'm actually working while there. Then is that considered a third-party situation then where I might have more benefits than a person that was actually working at that operation?
You could have more benefits. I tell you, this is not the place to get your benefits because they're very difficult cases. I mean, all cases are difficult, but if you're proving negligence against another party, if there's another party, not your employer, you could bring a separate claim above and beyond your workers' compensation claim. But the workers' compensation claims should open immediately. That should be an open claim right now. And then whether there's a third-party claim, some other entity aside from International Nutrition, if they're responsible, that would be a negligence claim or a strict liability some type of liability claim. That has to be proven though.
What about the company in a situation like this? Maybe not specifically International Nutrition, but just in general. If a company's involved in a massive disaster like this, are they best to lay low? Are they best to come to the forefront and say, here, we want to help? Everybody's protecting their own interests here at this point in time. What would a company do in a situation like this?
Well, I think they're probably talking to their counsel as well and being measured in what's going on. But they're, like I said before, that the employees of International Nutrition are covered under workers' compensation. Now, for instance, there could have been another employee in there, maybe a third party, maybe a plumber was there from working for a different company. He might have a claim for workers' compensation under his own plumbing policy, and then might have a claim against International Paper, or that's for example.
International Nutrition. Yeah.
That's an example of that comes up quite a bit. For instance, I represent truck drivers, and they might get in an accident where it's someone else's fault. So you have a workers' compensation claim as a truck driver, and then you have a claim against that other bad driver. Outside of workers' compensation.
And right now, without knowing who's what caused the collapse or who's at fault here right now, it's sort of a wait and see approach as far as any of that goes, right?
Yeah, and time is of the essence too. I mean, and I'm not pushing people to go talk to lawyers, but you should talk to lawyers earlier on, the better, and to find out before evidence is lost. Is it destroyed? Sometimes you have to have your own experts come out and take a look at the metal. What's out there. We'd have somebody go through there and take a look at it before that evidence gets lost, and record it, photograph it, video, whatever you need to do, because time does become an issue.
All right, Jeff Putnam. It's a touchy situation, after something like this happens. But you're right. There needs to be at least some form of legal counsel in something like this to make sure that you don't do something stupid, right?
Just educate yourself, and no matter what type of injury it is. And like I said, there's lots of lawyers out, and they'll spend the time and sit down and talk to you. They want to make sure you don't lose some of the rights that you didn't even know you gave up.
All right, Jeff Putnam. All right, man. Thanks for your time.
Okay, Tom.
All right, talk to you later.
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I hadn't even thought about it in that perspective. But I would imagine that if you were one of the people affected by that, you definitely would be looking at it from that perspective. Quick break, more on the way. This is the Tom Becka program here on the mighty 1290 KOIL.
Share your opinion. Call Tom now, 402-342-1290. Tom Becka on the mighty 1290 KOIL.